In the quiet town of Oakhaven, nestled among cobblestone streets and whispering willows, lived an old woman named Amara. To the townsfolk, she was simply the woman by the window, a silent figure who had become as much a part of the evening scenery as the setting sun. Every day, without fail, as the clock tower chimed 6, Amara would take her seat in the worn armchair by her front window. Her house, a lonely structure at the edge of the lane, stood as a testament to years of solitude. Its paint was peeling, the garden was overgrown, and a profound silence seemed to emanate from its very walls, a silence that mirrored the one Amara herself held so tightly. The neighbors spoke of her in hushed tones. They called her the silent woman, a spectre of a bygone era. Children would dare each other to run past her gate, convinced the house was haunted. Older residents wove tales about her past, each one more dramatic than the last. Some said she was a jilted bride, left at the altar decades ago. Others whispered she had lost a great fortune and her mind along with it. But no one truly knew her story. Amara never spoke to anyone, never acknowledged the curious glances or the pointing fingers. Her world was confined to the view from her window, a pane of glass that separated her from the life bustling outside. From her perch, she watched the world move on. She saw young lovers stroll hand in hand, their laughter echoing in the twilight air. She saw children grow from toddlers taking their first steps to teenagers driving their first cars. Seasons changed, families grew, and the town evolved, but Amara remained a constant, unchanging fixture. She was a spectator to life, a prisoner of her own memories, trapped in a timeless vigil. While the world outside embraced the future, she was anchored firmly in the past, her gaze distant, her expression unreadable. Her home wasn't just made of wood and stone. It was built from the bricks of silence and the mortar of loss. In her frail, wrinkled hands, she always held a small, tarnished silver locket. It was an elegant piece, heart-shaped, with intricate engravings that had been worn smooth by the constant touch of her thumb. She would run her fingers over its surface, her lips moving silently, as if reciting a prayer or a forgotten promise. This locket was the key, the one object that held the truth of her long, silent years. It was a symbol of a love that once was, a life that had been snatched away, and a secret she had carried alone for far too long. To anyone watching, it was just an old piece of jewelry. But to Amara, it was her entire world, a heavy burden she clutched like a lifeline. Her mind would often drift back to a single night, a night that had cleaved her life in two. The memory was always vivid, always painful. A storm had raged outside, the wind howling like a wounded animal and rain lashing against the window panes. Inside, the air was thick with tension, with words unsaid and a decision that hung heavy between two hearts. There was the sound of a door slamming shut, footsteps fading into the tempest, and then nothing. Just the relentless drumming of the rain and the deafening silence that followed. That night had changed everything. It was the night the music in her life stopped playing. The night she began her long, lonely watch by the window. A profound sense of regret was etched into every line on her face. It was the regret of words left unspoken, of actions not taken. The waiting had become her existence, an endless, agonizing vigil for someone who would never return. The pain was a constant companion, a dull ache in her heart that had never subsided. It was a wound that refused to heal, kept fresh by the daily ritual of sitting, watching, and remembering. Each passing car, each distant laugh, was a fresh reminder of what she had lost, of the life she could have had. Her silence wasn't born of choice, but of an unresolved pain so deep that it had stolen her voice. Tonight, however, something was different. As the last light of day faded, casting long shadows across her room, Amara's grip on the locket tightened. A single tear traced a path down her weathered cheek, a silent testament to a lifetime of sorrow. She brought the locket to her lips, and for the first time in decades, a sound escaped them. It was a whisper, fragile and hoarse, a sound almost foreign to the silent room. "Tomorrow," she breathed, her voice trembling with the weight of her resolve. "Tomorrow, I will tell the truth." The words hung in the air, a promise made to herself, to the past, and to the memory locked within the silver heart. With a determination that seemed to defy her frail frame, Amara pushed herself up from the chair. Her movements were slow, deliberate, but filled with a newfound purpose. The armchair, her faithful companion for countless evenings, was left empty. She did not look back at the window or the street outside. Instead, her eyes were fixed on something beyond the room, beyond the house. A chapter was ending, and a new one was about to begin. The silent woman of Oakhaven was silent no more. The storm from long ago was about to break, and the town was not ready for the secrets it would reveal. What truth had she been hiding, and who was she going to tell? The answers were finally coming. Thank you for watching. If this story touched you, please like, share and subscribe to our channel for more tales that explore the depths of the human heart. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think Amara's secret is? Until next time, stay curious. The early morning light spilled across the quiet street, revealing something unusual. The front door of Amara's small cottage, a door that had remained shut for decades, was now slightly ajar. A sliver of darkness that seemed to pull at the neighborhood's curiosity. It wasn't long before a small crowd gathered. Neighbors, their faces etched with concern, whispered among themselves. Had something happened to the silent woman? They'd known her for years, yet they didn't really know her at all. She was a fixture, a quiet presence, a mystery they had all grown accustomed to. The open door felt like a breach, a crack in the silent world she had built around herself. Finally, one brave soul, the baker from down the street, pushed the door open wider. The scent that wafted out wasn't one of distress, but of jasmine, sweet and calming. Inside, the house was immaculate. Dust motes danced in the sunbeams, slanting through the windows, illuminating old photographs and worn, well-loved furniture. It was a home frozen in time, filled with the ghosts of old memories. And there, in a high-backed chair by the window, sat Amara. She wasn't distressed. She was perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap, a silver locket resting against her chest. Her eyes, usually downcast, were looking towards the door, as if she had been expecting them. A faint, serene smile touched her lips. After decades of silence, she was ready to speak. The neighbors shuffled in, filling the small living room, their initial fear replaced by a profound sense of anticipation. Amara's voice, when it came, was surprisingly clear, though softened by disuse. She began to speak, and the story she told was not of the quiet life they all knew, but of a past filled with laughter, love, and a life she had once lived so fully. She spoke of bustling city streets, of a family she adored, of dreams she once held so dear. It was like watching a black and white photograph slowly bloom into vibrant color. She was not just the silent woman, she was someone who had lived and loved deeply. Then her tone shifted. The warmth in her voice gave way to a quiet sorrow. She confessed a secret she had carried for over 50 years. A tragic accident. A rainy night, a slippery road, a moment of lapsed attention. A life was lost. But the story didn't end there. She hadn't been the one behind the wheel. She took the blame, she explained, her voice barely a whisper, to protect someone she loved more than her own freedom. She chose a life of silence, of self-imposed exile, over a life where her loved one's future would be destroyed. The town had been her sanctuary, her prison, and her penance all at once. As her story concluded, her fingers, frail and wrinkled, fumbled with the silver locket around her neck. With a soft click, it opened. She held it out for everyone to see. Inside was a faded photograph of a smiling young boy. A collective gasp went through the room. Standing at the back, a man who had only recently moved to town, a successful architect who had come seeking a quieter life, stepped forward. His face was pale, his eyes wide with a dawning, heartbreaking realization. He was the boy in the photograph, the person she had protected all those years ago. He was her younger brother. He knelt before her, his composure shattering as tears streamed down his face. All these years he had believed she abandoned the family, that she had been the one to cause the tragedy. He had built a life on a foundation of misunderstanding and resentment, never knowing the depth of her sacrifice. He reached for her hand, his own trembling. "Why?" he choked out. "Why would you do that for me?" Amara looked at him, her eyes filled not with regret, but with an overwhelming love. The room was thick with emotion as the truth finally settled, stitching together the broken pieces of two lives. The weight of her secret had been lifted, not just from her, but from him as well. Amara gently squeezed his hand. "I didn't want praise," she said, her voice steady again. "I just wanted you to know the truth. I wanted you to live free." The community looked on, their own eyes wet with tears. They finally understood. They understood the quiet dignity of her posture, the deep sorrow in her eyes, the impenetrable wall she had built around herself. It wasn't born of coldness, but of a fierce, protective love. The silence of the house was broken, filled now with murmurs of comfort, of forgiveness, of awe. The isolation that had defined Amara's life for so long dissolved, replaced by a warmth and connection she had long since forgotten. The house, once a symbol of loneliness, became a place of gathering. Neighbors brought food, they brought stories, they brought their children. They sat with Amara, listening as she and her brother reconnected, filling in the 50 years of silence with shared memories and newfound understanding. The scent of jasmine was now mixed with the aroma of freshly baked bread and coffee. The quiet cottage was alive with the sound of laughter and gentle conversation. It was a house reborn, just as Amara had been. Her sacrifice had been immense, a heavy cross to bear alone. But in the end, it was the truth that brought redemption. Not just for her, but for an entire community that learned the profound meaning of love and forgiveness. Amara lived out her final years surrounded by the love she had so freely given away. She was no longer the silent woman, the town mystery. Her legacy became a story told to newcomers, a lesson passed down through generations. She was remembered as the woman who carried the truth in silence, who suffered so that another could live a life of freedom and success. Her story is a powerful reminder that the greatest sacrifices are often made in silence, and that the power of truth, no matter how long it takes, can ultimately set us all free. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more content that explores the depths of the human heart.